If you have ever struggled to implement new habits or maybe break some bad ones, this video is for you. I've spent the last 10-ish years of my life working on developing habits to support my health, my wealth, my relationships, and overall just having a healthy, happy, good life. And I'm going to be sharing some of the things that have really worked well for me. I'm going to be sharing concepts from two main books that I find to be extremely helpful, especially for beginners or anyone who's just getting into a habit building journey and really struggling. Number one is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I cannot recommend this book enough. I have read this several times through. I have done giveaways for it. It's just, I think, one of the best habit books out there on the market. So a lot of things I have learned from this book I'm going to be sharing. And then a newer one that I've read in the past couple of years recently is How to Change by Katie Milkman. I love some of the concepts that she shares in this book, so I'm going to be sharing what I've learned from this and how it's helped me as well. So the number one thing that you need to start with is a mindset change, because I think a lot of us have this idea that changing your habits, changing your behavior is all about having this willpower and motivation, and you just have to kind of like white knuckle through it and grit through it and force your way through it. And that's just how it has to be, when in reality, that is not the way to implement habits if you want them to stick and you want to enjoy it in the process, because a habit that is more enjoyable is more likely to stick versus one that you absolutely hate. I think a lot of us struggle with habits because, number one, it is human biology that we resist change. Our bodies, our minds want to prioritize comfort, safety, and the known. So anytime we step outside of that, if we're pushing beyond that, if we get a little uncomfortable, it's just our body and our mind's natural reaction to pull away from that and to try to stop it. So we're fighting against our own nature here. But willpower and feeling motivated are finite resources that we can't just tap into 24/7. We have to bypass that. We can't just white knuckle our way through everything. We need to find ways to support the change that we want to have. So it's really about having the right strategies, systems, and environment to set you up for success and support the change that you are looking to make. So here are the 7 steps to kickstart your habits and make them actually stick. Number one is to set yourself up to get started. Getting started is probably the hardest part of creating a new habit for most people. We have so much resistance to it. So the key here is to find a way to just take that first small action, and then you'll gain momentum from there. The first thing you can do is get clear on your why. Why do you want to implement this habit? So for example, I come from the health and fitness coaching background. A lot of people want to lose weight and get healthy. When I ask them why they want to do that, I initially get a surface level response, and I always encourage them to do these several whys to get to the true why underneath. And this kind of sounds like a little kid being like, why? Just continually ask yourself. So I want to get healthy and fit. Why? Because I don't have a lot of energy right now and I don't feel confident in my body. Why? I want to be able to have energy to run around with my kids so that I can be present for them, so that I can go on this hike that I've been dreaming of my whole life. Or when it comes to confidence, I'm tired of covering up at the beach or hiding in the back of photos. Why? Because I want to enjoy the time with my friends and not spend every moment tugging at my clothes and wondering if I look okay or if I have this or that. Those things can detract from our lives so much. So getting to that deep-rooted why is going to be really helpful for you as you move forward on those hard days. Write it down, have it somewhere where you can have it visible on a daily basis, whether it's your bathroom mirror or a sticky note on your computer, somewhere that you can constantly remind yourself of why you're choosing to take the path of more resistance, of change, and doing something that can feel a little bit hard sometimes. The next thing is to pick your moment to start. Now, I always say that there's no wrong moment to start. You can start right now. You could start at 4:07 p.m. on a Wednesday. You don't have to wait for a new week, a new Monday, a new month, and please don't wait for a new year, because those only come around once a year and that's a long time to wait. But there is this psychological component to having this fresh start, this clean slate. And Katie Milkman talks about this in her book, How to Change, this fresh start effect, and how we can really harness that existing momentum in order to help us with that start. So there's a couple of other ways that we have these fresh starts, new chapter type of vibes in our lives, like things like birthdays or major life events like moving, changing jobs. Obviously, that's not always something that we can use to our advantage. We can't just like pick up and move because we want to change our habits. Although I'm not gonna lie, I love doing that. But we can harness that same energy. For example, if we want to have that fresh start feeling without, a new month, new year, whatever, we could do something like rearrange our space. I love to rearrange my office whenever I start to feel some stale energy or like I'm feeling stuck. I'll rearrange my office, rearrange the living room or whatever, and it gives me that fresh start feeling that I would have had if I had done something bigger like move houses. This really gives you kind of that separation feeling between the old you and the new you, and that makes it easier to take that action and build on that momentum. The next thing is to start with your identity versus the outcome. James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits, that when we focus on identity shifting habits, it is more powerful and more likely to stick than just an outcome based. So for example, instead of saying I want to run a marathon, which is an outcome based, your identity focused habit goal would be to become a runner. This is something that is going to shift your mindset from focusing on the one big outcome piece to the things that you need to do every single day. So somebody who ran a marathon, they completed a one-time event. Somebody who's a runner runs regularly a couple times a week, and they prioritize that training style. In the inverse, I've given this example before in previous videos, but if you are a smoker and you don't want to smoke anymore, you would shift your language from I'm trying to quit smoking to I am not a smoker. If you're trying to quit, that implies that sometimes you might still do it. It's still kind of a habit. You're still holding on to that identity. It's hard for you. Versus saying I am not a smoker is a definitive, that is not my identity. And somebody who doesn't identify as a smoker doesn't smoke. The next thing is to start with one thing. I know it is so tempting to want to overhaul your entire life and, go after this. I'm going to be this, clean girl aesthetic or like that woman routine, and I'm going to change everything. I'm going to start waking up at 5 a.m. even though right now I roll out of bed at 7:30 and like rush to get to work on time. I'm going to do this 37-step morning routine. I'm going to work out 6 days a week. I'm going to eat, clean and whatever. And trying to do all of this at one time is just a recipe for disaster. And you are going to get so burnt out, so overwhelmed, and so frustrated because you won't be able to maintain it. So I really want you to just start with one thing that you can change right now, one habit that you want to implement and focus on, and then build from there once you start to have some momentum, have some success, see those check marks going on your calendar, and then that is going to give you a strong foundation to continue to add additional habits on top of that. And finally, just start where you are. You don't have to wait for the perfect timing. You don't have to wait until you have the right workout outfits. You don't have to wait until you figure out the perfect diet or the perfect morning routine or have the right type of journal or, daily planner to get you started with your productivity, whatever you are working on. You don't need to wait until everything is just right or you have all of the answers. Just start right here, right now with what you know, what you have, and then you'll continue to iterate and expand on that and continue to get better day by day. Step number 2 is to make your habit insanely, stupidly small. It should feel so small that you feel like, is this even worth calling a habit? Is this even good enough? Like, it should feel silly how simple and easy you are making it, because this is the key to ensuring that you maintain it in the long run. James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits, and like I said before, we are very naturally resistant to change. So when you are trying to implement a new habit and do something different than you normally do, you're gonna feel a lot of resistance. After maybe the initial week or two when you're really excited, you have a lot of like excitement and motivation naturally. After that, it fades off and you will always pick the path of least resistance. You're always going to choose the easiest path. So making your new habit as easy and simple and small as possible is going to help you so much. So for example, if you want to have the habit of working out or the habit of running regularly, make your new habit to put your sneakers on and walk out the door. That's it. It should take you less than 2 minutes to do your habit, because just doing that, 9 times out of 10, you're going to continue with the workout. If you want to meditate, don't try to start with 30 minutes to an hour every single day, you're not going to maintain that. Start with 2 minutes of closing your eyes and breathing. If you want to read, don't try to read an entire chapter or for an hour every single day. Start with 1 page, 2 minutes of reading. That's it. Obviously, you can always do more than that. And most of the time, in my experience, with myself and with clients, it's so much easier and we often do more than just that little bit. But knowing that that's all you have to do on days where you absolutely really, really don't want to and you feel so busy, so exhausted, so tired, you're like, okay, it's only 2 minutes. I can get this done. I can knock it out. And you're more likely to do it than to not do it. Personal story here. When I initially was overcoming my burnout, I was trying to go back to my morning routine that I had before, waking up at 5 a.m. And then I had all my time blocks for doing all these things in a certain order, getting my workout in. And I was really, really struggling and I just could not do it. So I ended up simplifying my morning routine and it has made me so much happier and I've been more productive because of it. So now my morning routine is I get up, I do my 3 gratitudes in my journal, which takes me less than 2 minutes. Sometimes I end up writing more, and that's great. But if I don't have time or I don't feel like it, then all I have to do is write down my 3 things that I'm grateful for, and I'm done. Then I do a little bit of reading, which only takes me a few minutes. Of course, I can do more, and I often do, but I only have to do a short, 2 to 5 minute reading, and then that's it. Once I completed that, my morning routine at the time was considered done, but now I've slowly added on more and more things and I'm getting more done. I am following more of a routine that I would like to have than I was before, but it doesn't feel like a lot of pressure and it doesn't feel overwhelming or stressful. Step number 3 is to remove the friction. Like I said before, we are creatures of comfort. We don't want to change. We don't want to do hard things just naturally. Even though our evolved brain is like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to be ambitious. Our lizard brain, I forget where I read that from, our lizard brain doesn't want to do anything, wants to sit on the couch, be comfy, cozy, and safe. So we really need to make sure that we are making things as easy as possible. Removing the friction from your good habits and adding friction to the bad habits. So some examples of removing friction for your good habits, for example, I put my vitamins in a weekly container every Sunday, and then every night I set out my ones for the next day right on the counter so that in the mornings after I have my coffee, my water, all of that, I can take my vitamins. It's right there in front of my face. I don't have to think about it. I don't forget about it because it's in a cabinet. As much as I would like to have all of my counters clear and beautiful and look like no one lives here, that's not realistic. So having it out in front of my face, make sure that I'm actually taking them. Same thing goes for shoes. I have my running sneakers and my workout sneakers on a shelf by the front door so that it's really easy for me to see them on a daily basis and be like, I'm going to go for my run or I'm going to go for my mile walk. Also, things like keeping healthy snacks, healthy food readily available. I've talked about this before, that when I buy groceries, the first thing that I do before I put anything away is wash and chop all of the veggies and fruits so that it's ready to eat. When I have it in the fridge and it's ready to grab and eat immediately, you're more likely to reach for that than say like a processed food or a snack or something that is less healthy because that's ready to eat 9 times out of 10. I also do this with my morning routine. I keep my journal, my book that I'm reading, and my devotional out on my coffee table so that the first thing that I do when I wake up is I make my coffee and then I grab that, I sit down on the couch and I do my readings and my journaling. And that makes it really easy versus having it stored away in a bookshelf or put away somewhere where I don't see it. Out of sight, out of mind. And then it's the opposite for bad habits. So if you want to remove things from your life, you want to add more friction. For example, on my phone, I removed all notifications for every single app. Basically, the only notifications I get during the day are from calls and text messages, and I only allow those from my VIP like favorites list. So my family and close friends, nobody else is getting through. I definitely do not have any notifications on. Like I don't even see the little bubble for social media apps or anything like that. None of that is visible to me. The only time I see those notifications are when I go into the app itself. And that is because I don't want to be constantly distracted by dings, pings, and bubbles coming up on my phone, because we are going to be distracted by that. The second you hear something, the second you see a notification pop up, it's going to divert your attention to your phone and then you're sucked into scrolling and you forgot what you were doing. I also have focus modes set up on my phone automatically for certain times of the day. So at night from like 9 until 5 a.m., it's on my sleep mode. So nothing comes through except for my emergency contacts, like, my parents' immediate family. And then from 5 to 9 a.m., it's set to my business focus morning routine mode. So I have a few more people that I allow to get through just because I work closely with them. But again, no notifications are coming through. I can't even access, if I look through my phone, I can't even access 90% of my apps. The only things that I can see are things like my Notes app, my Notion, anything that's helping me with my business, essentially. A few other ways you can add friction. I like to keep my phone in the bathroom at night, so it's not sitting next to me. I'm not doom scrolling right before I go to bed. I'm not looking at my phone the first thing I wake up in the morning. I'm not getting distracted by it, and definitely all the other things that we hear about having phones right next to your head while you sleep. Don't want that. For watching TV, you can do something like in the book Atomic Habits, he recommends unplugging the TV, putting the remote like in a cabinet. So there's just this couple of extra steps that you have to do in order to watch TV or whatever that habit is. And it's just enough to make you think twice, like, do I actually want to do this? Like, is this something I want to do? And often that little bit of time, that like one thought as you're having to take those extra steps, is enough to help you remove the habit loop that is causing you to do that bad habit. Again, the idea here is that we're making the good choice as easy as possible and the bad choice as hard as possible. And we're also removing willpower from the equation as much as possible and designing our environment to support the choices that we want to make and to make it more difficult to make the choices that we don't want to make. Step number 4 is to habit stack or attach it to an existing habit. It's much easier to get a new habit rolling when you tie it to something that you're already doing. Now, habit stacking is simply just taking the new habit that you want and attaching it to an existing habit. This can be something like, for example, with me, I tied journaling and morning gratitude to my morning coffee because I know every single morning I'm going to have that cup of coffee. I'm not going to miss it. So if I tie journaling and gratitude to my morning coffee, I'm not going to skip it. And it's actually become one of my favorite parts of the day, even though in the beginning it felt like I was like forcing myself to write every single day. Now it feels like it's flowing a lot better. Another example is at night when I go to brush my teeth, I plug in my phone in the bathroom. So that was a habit that I wanted to implement, was plugging in my phone in the bathroom so that I don't have it with me when I go to bed. So I tied it to when I brush my teeth in the evening. Another way that you can habit stack is called temptation bundling. And I really love this concept that Katie Milkman shared in How to Change, where she gave the example of tying listening to an audiobook with going to the gym. So they did a study, and she did this with herself, where the only time you could listen to the audiobook, I think she listened to Harry Potter, was when she was at the gym. So it gave her something to really look forward to while she was doing an activity that maybe she wasn't like super excited to do, but she still wanted to implement as a habit in her life. And you can do the same thing here. So whether that's, listening to your audiobooks while you go on a walk so that you get your steps in, or maybe doing some mobility and stretching while you're watching, your favorite TV show. And number 5 is to make it satisfying. So a little bit like we were talking about with the temptation bundling, but oftentimes when we are trying to implement new habits, one of the hardest things about it is that we don't have immediate gratification from them like we would from bad habits or from not doing them at all. For example, when you're working out, you don't see the immediate difference. It might be a few weeks or a few months before you see the change that you're looking to see. So it is really hard in the moment to make yourself go do that workout when you're not going to have like that immediate payoff, for example. Although I would consider, at the end, I always feel really good about myself. I feel energized. I have endorphins flowing. So for me, that's the immediate gratification. But the long-term vision of it is it's further out. So you have more of that delayed gratification, which makes it harder to stick to in the moment. Your brain very much craves immediate satisfaction. So when it doesn't receive it, especially in the way that it's expecting, it can often feel like your brain just kind of disengages and it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not worth it. And you start to have kind of those thoughts. So we need to infuse the fun and the immediate gratification in some way to what we're doing today, knowing that the payoffs that we're really looking for are a little bit further away. So first of all, you want to make it as fun as possible. You want to make the process of it, the journey, the daily day-to-day of it as fun as you can. If you hate running, then don't run. You can walk, you can rollerblade, you can go for a bike ride, you can do a number of different things. You can go to dance classes. If you don't love going to the gym, then make sure that you have a couple of things at home, equipment-wise, that you can use for home workouts, and you can do it that way. I love working out at home. I prefer it. I did it for years before I started going to gyms, and right now, the season of life that I'm in, I'm working out at home 99% of the time, and I absolutely love it. And then, like I said, with my financial review that I'm trying to do every week, I don't love doing that. It's not super fun for me right now. I'm sure it will be really fun in the future when I start building more wealth, but right now, not fun for me. So I make it as fun as possible by having a fun coffee, by putting on a good playlist and setting the mood, setting the vibes, and then doing something really fun afterwards. The best version of a habit is the one that you're actually going to stick to and do time and time again, not one that seems or sounds impressive to people online. The next way to make it satisfying is to reward your behavior immediately afterwards. Like I said, a lot of the times good habits have a delayed gratification, so bringing in some type of reward immediately afterwards is going to make it more satisfying and make your brain crave that satisfaction, which makes you more likely to do the habit again and again. So you can do something like a small reward afterwards. You just want to make sure it's not contradicting. So if you are rewarding yourself with ice cream after every workout, that's probably not a good combo. It could be something as small as a habit tracker. So having a habit tracker where you get to check off that you completed a day, that type of visual motivation is so satisfying for ourselves and for our brains. So something as simple as that, or maybe it's if you're consistent for a month, you get a new workout outfit. Or like I said, after my financial review, I like to go for a walk or go to the pool or go do something fun as a reward for completing that activity. Another small way to reward your own behavior is to share it with somebody. And we're going to talk about accountability groups in just a moment, but sharing your wins, either, just writing it down in a wins journal or a wins list for yourself is a great way to celebrate. And number 6 is to build in accountability. We are very social creatures by nature, so having people around us that are supportive, that have similar goals, that we can celebrate with is really, really important on our journeys. And I think that that's why it's so powerful when you're able to find community or find just a supportive group of people who can be there for you, to celebrate you, to motivate you, and keep you focused when maybe things can kind of get a little bit hard, because they will. There's going to be a lot of days where you don't feel like doing the habits that you want to do, and having people that you can lean on to get encouragement from, even if it's just somebody that you follow that gives you that motivation, inspiration, is so, so powerful in that journey. You're also way more likely to follow through when other people are involved. It's really easy for us to let ourselves down, and it's harder for us to let other people down. So if you have, if you've shared your goal, like, hey, I want to, work out 5 times a week, or if you are meeting a friend at the gym, or, you have an accountability group that you are checking in with regularly, it's way harder for you to let that group of people down or to let others down. So you're more likely to take the action. And again, even something as simple as having a habit tracker where you can keep track of the days that you do complete your habit, seeing that visually, your brain is going to be like, I don't want to miss a day, or I don't want to miss another day. I want to continue this streak, continue this momentum. And you're more likely to follow through when you have that accountability, even if it's just yourself with your habit tracker or if it's with others. And step number 7 is to give yourself grace, because if you are too hard on yourself, if you constantly beat yourself up over every little thing, if you demand perfection from yourself, if you are in this all or nothing mindset, you are going to fail. I'm sorry to say it, but I have been there myself, and I have coached enough people to know. But when you are in that mindset, you're not going to be able to sustain the activities and the behaviors over the long term. Perfectionism is the enemy of consistency, and I can say that because I have been there and I still struggle with it sometimes. I've worked through that in my fitness journey, and I feel really, really good about where I'm at with my health and wellness habits, but I still battle it when it comes to my productivity and my business and my work ethic. I still feel like a lot of times I'm trying to lean into that perfectionism, even though I know logically that it's better to be consistent, to continuously take action, have output, than it is to try to be perfect and like not do things, because we can't ever be perfect. So just know that if you are doing like 75, 80% with your habits, that you are on a winning streak, and that continuing on that is going to take you so incredibly far, much further than if you try to hit 100% all of the time, because that is only realistic for maybe a few weeks and then you'll fall off. And oftentimes people that fall off because they're not perfect, end up staying off track for a long time and then like trying to get back on, and it's just this whole messy thing. And I'm sure you've been there too. So don't try to be perfect. And I want you to remember through all of this that your efforts are going to compound over time. So these little 1% efforts that seem silly and small in the moment, when you look back at them in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, you are going to see such massive change, such massive difference in yourself, in your life. You're going to be like, wow, I can't believe that I thought the act of putting on my sneakers and walking out the door wasn't good enough, because now I'm running a half marathon. That was how I started. I literally, I ran my second half marathon this February, and I've been running a race every single month this year in 2026. When I started my running journey, I had just recovered from surgery where I could barely walk from my house to my mailbox. Like, that's how weak I was because of the complications from that. I could barely walk to my mailbox. And now I'm able to run 13 miles. Like, what? That's crazy to me. That's crazy. So it just shows you that if you continually show up and just focus on doing the best that you can each day, you are going to see success, and that you are going to be able to change your habits and change your life. I know we covered a lot today, and I'm going to put in the description these steps, and I'll just like create a little document with all of this in it so that you can have something to refer to. But I want you to let me know in the comments, what is a habit that you are either working on creating and implementing in your life, or maybe a habit that you are trying to break? And what of these steps do you think is going to help you do that? I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future ones. If you know anyone that is trying to create or break habits in their life, please share this video with them if you think it would help. It really helps me grow the channel, and I appreciate that so much. And I would also love to ask you, what other topics would you like me to talk about? Drop in the comments if you have a request, if there's something you want me to cover. I would love to hear from you, because the whole point of me being here is to help you as much as I can. So I would appreciate that so much. And that's it for today. I will see you next week. Bye.